All right, let's dive into one of India's most fascinating and honestly rebellious rivers, the Narmada. This isn't just any river, it's one that completely carves its own path, going against the flow, literally. So what's its story?
So, here's the big question, the mystery we're going to unravel together. Pretty much all of its peers are heading in one direction, but the Narmada, it decides to go its own way. But why? What geological secret is it hiding?
And this is the core of it, right here. You've got the vast majority of India's big peninsular rivers flowing east, emptying into the Bay of Bengal. But then there's the Narmada. It breaks formation and makes a run for it, heading west into the Arabian Sea. It's a true geographical outlier, and we're about to find out exactly why.
Okay, so to really understand this river's incredible journey, we have to go right back to the beginning. Our story starts high up in the hills of central India, on a plateau where this powerful river takes its very first breath.
Here are the key stats. The Narmada kicks off its epic 1,312-kilometer journey from a sacred little tank called the Narmada Kund. It's way up on the Amarkantak Plateau in Madhya Pradesh, and from this single point, it begins its long, determined march west all the way to the Gulf of Kambat.
And here's a really cool way to remember its source. This Hindi phrase basically means, from Amarkantak, the nectar-like Narmada emerges. It's a beautiful saying that also happens to be a great memory hack to lock in where this special river comes from.
So, how does it maintain this really unusual westward path? Well, this is where we get to the main secret. The Narmada isn't just wandering across the landscape. Nope, it's following a very specific, very ancient geological channel that was carved out millions of years ago. And that channel is called a rift valley. So, what in the world is that? Well, imagine a huge block of land sinking down between two parallel mountain ranges. That sunken trench that's created, that's a rift valley. It's like a natural superhighway for water, and the Narmada just happens to flow right down the middle of it.
This shows it perfectly. The river is literally sandwiched between two massive mountain ranges. To the north, you've got the Vindhya Mountains. To the south, you've got the Satpura Mountains. They act like these giant guiding walls, hemming the river in and forcing it to flow straight through the valley that they form. It has no other choice.
And of course, we've got a great way for you to remember this. Just think VS Valley for Vindhya Satpura. But what else could VS stand for? How about very straight? The VS Valley is what makes the Narmada a very straight river. See? Pretty clever, right? Okay, so now that we've cracked a code on why it flows west, let's take a look at what it flows past. We're going to take a quick trip down the river now, checking out the states it crosses, some jaw-dropping waterfalls, and the smaller rivers that help it along the way.
The Narmada's journey is a three-state affair. It spends the vast majority of its life in its home state, Madhya Pradesh. We're talking about 85% of its entire basin is there. Then, it briefly forms the border with Maharashtra before making its final dash through Gujarat to meet the sea.
How do you remember that order? Easy. Just think NMG. The Narmada flows through Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra to Gujarat. NMG. Or if you want a phrase, just remember, Narmada moves gracefully. It just sticks. Now this river's path isn't just straight, it's also seriously spectacular. It creates several breathtaking waterfalls. You've got Kapildara and Sahasradhara, and then there's the world-famous Dhuandar Falls, where the river just plunges down through these incredible white marble rocks near Jabalpur. It's an amazing sight.
Of course, no big river works alone. It's constantly being fed by smaller rivers called tributaries. If you imagine you're floating down the Narmada, the rivers joining from your left are the left bank tributaries. Key ones there are the Burner, the Banjar, and the Tawa, which is actually its biggest tributary. And from the right, you have rivers like the Hiran, Orsang, and Kolar joining the flow.
Whoa, that is a lot of names to remember, I know. But don't worry, we've got a super trick for this. Just think of them as two teams. For the left bank tributaries, remember the team BBT, Burner, Banjar, Tawa. For the right bank, think of team HOKS, Hiran, Orsang, Kolar, and Sher. BBT and HOKS, the Narmada's two teams. Simple.
All right, we've covered the geology and the geography, but the Narmada is so much more than just rocks and water. It is a critical lifeline for millions and millions of people. So in this next part, let's focus on its huge human impact, from the massive dams that harness its power to the ancient cities on its banks.
To manage all that water, some absolutely enormous dams have been built. The most famous is probably the Sardar Sarovar Dam in Gujarat,
But then you have the Indira Sagar Dam in Madhya Pradesh, which, get this, holds the largest reservoir in all of India by volume. And of course, there are other important ones like Omkareshwar, Maheshwar, and Bargi.
And you guessed it, we've got a way to remember the big ones. Just think of the acronym SIOMB. Sardar Sarovar, Indira Sagar, Omkareshwar, Maheshwar, and Bargi. SIOMB, the 5 megadams of the Narmada.
You know, for centuries, people have built their homes and their entire civilizations along this river. Major cities like Jabalpur, Mandla, Hoshangabad, which is now also called Narmadapuram fittingly, and the ancient port city of Bharuch in Gujarat. They all owe their very existence to the Narmada.
So, as we get toward the end of our journey, it becomes really clear that the Narmada kind of lives a double life. On one hand, it's this modern engine for development and progress, but on the other, it is one of the most sacred rivers in India, just deeply woven into the spiritual fabric of the entire nation.
This chart just sums it all up beautifully. A huge chunk of its importance comes from providing hydropower and water for irrigation. Another slice is tourism, especially thanks to those stunning marble rocks. And a massive piece, of course, is its sacred role as the focus of the holy Narmada Parikrama, a pilgrimage that traces the river's entire length.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. The Narmada is a river of contrasts, isn't it? It's ancient, but it's modern. It's wild, but it's controlled. It's a source of faith and a source of power. And as the demands on its water continue to grow, the biggest challenge will be balancing these two powerful identities. So, what do you think the future holds for this remarkable river? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.